With the country's premier investigative agency in crisis, the Supreme Court has taken a tough stand. The top court has now appointed a retired judge to closely monitor the investigation. The Supreme Court has also clipped interim CBI chief Nageshwar Rao's wings, barring him from taking any policy decisions.
With the top court categorically stating that the CVC will complete the probe in 14 days' time, there is hope that there will be closure to this entire crisis in the foreseeable future.
Just minutes after the developments in the top court, politics took over. Congress party workers across India took to the streets, which ended with their party president Rahul Gandhi getting detained by the police.
The Prime Minister acted against the director of the CBI as a result of panic, as a result of fear, because he has helped Mr. Anil Ambani with 30,000 crores.
The government, meanwhile, welcomed the Supreme Court orders, calling it an extremely positive development.
In the current CBI controversy is an extremely positive development. The government is interested only in maintaining the professionalism, the image, and the institutional integrity of the CBI.
While once again the Supreme Court shows the way in the CBI corruption case, the episode has left the credibility of the Central Bureau of Investigation in tatters. Mirror now asks, has political interference destroyed India's premier investigating agency? The debate begins now.
3 days and counting, and the drama just doesn't seem to die at the CBI headquarters, and now it's moved to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court was talking really tough today, and if you take a look at the language that was used, it was not in the mood for any sort of negotiation. The Supreme Court told the government and the representatives of the CVC that it wanted this investigation complete in 10 days. They said, but there's Diwali. And the Supreme Court turned around and said there is no Diwali for the CBI and the CVC. This investigation will have to be completed in 10 days, but there is a lot of confusion around it, and I'll tell you why. There are two camps at this point. One camp is reading the Supreme Court's order and its opinions as the government being vindicated. The other says because the Supreme Court has asked for the investigation to be supervised by a retired Supreme Court judge, this shows that the CVC is also perhaps not fully trusted. Which one of this is true? And how much do we have to worry? What is obvious is political interference, and not just from this particular point, but from various governments in the past. The CBI has been used as a handler. The CBI has been used as a weapon. Has it gone too far? And will we ever be able to regain the glory of the CBI? What we're also doing today is opening up phone lines from the very beginning of the show, so you can pick up the phone and call us, because every citizen I have spoken to so far has asked me, what is going on? How can we possibly have this much drama in the CBI? So if you call us right now, we'll patch the phone calls through and you'll be able to ask your question to our panel of guests. Joining me on the show, Kailash Vasudev, Senior Advocate with the Supreme Court, Vinod Sharma, Senior Journalist, N. Ram and Vinay Tiwari, both Senior Journalists. Vinay Tiwari is the Consulting Editor with the Times Network, D.R. Karthikeyan, former Director of the CBI, Nalin Kohli, spokesperson with the BJP, also Senior Advocate with the Supreme Court. I welcome all of you to this conversation. It's a simple question. Has political interference destroyed the CBI? My first question is to Mr. N. Ram. Mr. N. Ram, is it now beyond a shadow of doubt that the CBI has a serious problem of political interference?
Yes, this is crude and blatant political interference, bringing on a tamasha, a sort of tragic-comic crisis. But I've had no illusions about the CBI. There have been some excellent officers, and you have one sitting there, Mr. Karthikeyan, who I know his investigation of the Rajiv Gandhi assassination case was outstanding, was a model investigation with no deviation from their professionalism. And, but then I've had experience with Bofors, where the CBI was not independent. They didn't even file an FIR until the Congress government changed. But very rarely have we seen this kind of blatant, crude attack on an institution. And this goes back. It's not just happened overnight, the overnight coup, as the media have called it. It was the appointment of Rakesh Asthana, bringing in that particular way, and then interfering at every stage. And finally, whatever illusion remained was destroyed by this blatant act of removing a director, probably illegally. It's because independence is assured, at least on paper and under the statute, and the terms of service, I think, have been violated. But we will wait to see how that fares in the Supreme Court.
Mr. Kailash Vasudev, is this undeniable evidence of political interference? The actual leave being now looked at as a de facto transfer. Do you see this? Now, the government argues that the Supreme Court orders were vindicative of the government's stand and the government's actions in the CBI. Do you agree with the government, Mr. Vasudev?
No, I don't. I am convinced today, after seeing the order and reading it and applying a little bit of mind, which we lawyers claim we have. You see, the order is very specific. There's a restraint on government, that is in the additional director who is now taken over as IB chief. There is a direction by an independent person, a retired Supreme Court judge, to investigate into the matter. It is a restriction on the acting head of the CBI from taking any policy decisions or any major decisions. There is a request that this be done within a specified period of time by the 12th of November. The Supreme Court has acted with tremendous correctness in handling a situation which is explosive. Explosive because you're dealing with two persons who are testing the system and destroying it. You are dealing with a political class which is maintaining a stoic silence in circumstances where you should make a statement. Merely taking a decision in the middle of the night is not an action which is warranted, or maybe is not correct. You should have taken it at a different point of time over a year ago. Here, the Supreme Court has maintained a balance, and a correct balance in exercise of its judicial powers. Please understand that the system of the court is a very effective system and everybody has approached it. And here is where I put in a caveat. They've gone to the Supreme Court essentially because they want to protect themselves. They are the meek who are testing a strong system. The meek are now taking over in a system which has now established itself to be correct. The Supreme Court has acted with magnanimity and correctness, and I personally feel this is the best thing the court could have done. Silence everybody, keep everybody quiet, let a retired judge investigate into the matter and give a finding. Depending on his finding, the Supreme Court will take further action.
Nalin Kohli, do you have a response to what Mr. Kailash Vasudev just said, that the Supreme Court's action has actually been to restrict the government and not vindicate it?
I'd look at it a little differently. I think the first part is the Supreme Court has not reversed the decisions that have taken place. The first being in terms of removal of the interim arrangement of Mr. Nageshwar Rao looking after the day-to-day functioning. Of course, that's been caveated by the fact that he should not take any policy decision, which is also correct because it's an interim arrangement. The second part is it's not reversed the decision in terms of putting the two warring top, the number one and the number two of the organization on the recommendation of the CVC. So therefore, according to me, it's, if not a vindication, it is at least in recognition that the step that has been taken by the government on the recommendation of the CVC does not need to be reversed. What the Honorable Supreme Court and the Chief Justice of India has done in a sense is, and which is of course something that needs to be complemented, is can we get over with this soon and know all the facts? So to get over it soon, know the facts, ensure it's in a transparent manner, that no questions can be asked. An Honorable Supreme Court former judge is going to oversee it, and the CVC has been directed to do that in 10 days. So I don't know where we see this as an attack on the government or anything. I think everyone is applying their mind to the same issue, that the integrity of the CBI in terms of one of the country's premier institutions is protected There will have to be an attempt to restore its credibility for what has been lost in this factional fight. And with regard to the two warring sides, both of them have gone to the CVC with complaints. Both of them have made allegations of corruption against each other. And therefore that needs to be investigated and the truth must be out at the end.
Both made allegations, Mr. Kohli, but one had an FIR against him. And the new interim chief has transferred 14 officers as his first action in office. Mr. Vasudev, do you want to quickly rebut before I bring in the other members of the panel?
I will answer your question after that.
It's a very simple rebuttal. It's a very simple rebuttal. The Supreme Court will decide the matter. This is just an interim order. The decision of the court will depend on the report which is tendered by the Justice Patnaik committee which has been set up. Now, till then, it is just an interim arrangement that everybody hold your horses. You will function, the CBI will function, but you will not function outside the bounds within these two divisions. Please understand, Mr. Verma's complaint came on his findings, or his alleged findings, if I use the word correctly with Mr. Kohli there. I repeat, alleged findings, that there was something wrong with Asthana. Asthana's FIR came at a point of time when he felt that there might be some kind of thing going wrong. Both are government. Asthana is government, Verma is government. To say that the government has been stopped, yes, it has been stopped because both have been stopped. And the Nageshwar Rao element has also been stopped. So therefore, to say that there has been no restraint on government, in my opinion, would be wrong. Because there's a restraint on the three officers of the CBI from doing anything, and the head of the acting head of the CBI from doing anything. I would read this as a bit of a restraint on the powers to be exercised in the governance of the CBI.
Right.
My view.
Yes. Vinay Tiwari, I have a question for you. We're talking about political interference. Now, our viewers are familiar with what has happened over the last 3 days. Would you help us interpret it? Why would this be evidence of political interference?
Well, three reasons. Number one, when you have a situation where an officer has been brought in under quote-unquote controversial circumstances, and I'm using the word controversial because the head of the agency where he's supposed to be deputed has objected to his name. That in itself gives rise to suspicions of political interference because clearly there was a reason why that officer was brought in. The HOD of a department, it's a normal practice in any governance, whether it's a corporate or it's a government office. If the HOD is not happy with an individual and that unhappiness is overridden, there is something that needs to be corrected somewhere. I mean, there is something wrong somewhere if the HOD is not happy with the choice of his own deputy. Then the fact that that simmering tension has been happening for the last 1 year, the government and everybody else in Delhi being well aware of the tension between the two, and then the subsequent escalation of the tension because of his promotion, because of a sidelining of another officer who was transferred out to the Home Ministry, also then gives rise to a fact that there is a succession plan that is being put in place for that officer to succeed once Verma retires in January 2019. And third, after the removal of the two officers or after the officers being sent on leave, the mass transfers of officers who are actually investigating only one case and allegedly owe allegiance, and I'm using the word allegiance with great reluctance because in government institutions, allegiance is not the word that should be used. That's a word that we use with political
exist,
parties.
Yes.
They are professionals. But the fact that 14 of them belonging to just one investigative unit have been shunted out, there is no other interpretation but to say that there has been an interference at the government political level.
All right. I want to take this now to Dr. Karthikeyan. Mr. Karthikeyan, appointment of the officer Asthana, the escalation of tension, the possible succession plan that might have been planned, and the mass transfers that took place after that. Do you read this as political interference as well? Mr. Karthikeyan, if you can hear me?
Yes, please repeat. I didn't hear you.
Yes, my question is, do you read the actions of the last or the results of the last 3 days as evidence of political interference because the officer Rakesh Asthana was appointed to the CBI in spite of the fact that his superior was unhappy with his appointment? He remained there despite the escalation of tension between the two officers and the mass transfer and the action that was taken by the government. Is this political interference in the CBI?
You see, I'm still not hearing you properly, but presuming this is the question, till yesterday I answered all your questions.
Yes.
But now the Supreme Court has spoken.
So now there is some restriction, self-imposed restriction on my part to make any further comments on the issues which are agitated before the Supreme Court. And when the court sees of the matter, then pass some orders. And in fact, I've been traveling. I don't know the full implication of the orders. But once the Supreme Court has given certain directions to all concerned, and after having the advantage of listening to the most brilliant legal experts in the country representing all sides, I would be very, very reluctant to make any comment on the appointment or otherwise, and the orders or midnight orders passed and all that, till the final orders of the Supreme Court comes. Now, you kindly ask me specifically for anything else. Appointment of Asthana and whether Alok Verma is being asked to go on leave, and whether the order is right by the committee, all these things I cannot answer now, because I am sure there will be a specific finding on all these aspects by the Apex Court at the next date of hearing. So I don't want to either way influence or...
Okay, all right, fair enough, fair enough. I respect that answer. I want to take this back to Nalin Kohli. Mr. Kohli, representing the BJP, there have been questions about political interference, and I do know that you wanted to respond to Mr. Vasudev as well. Go ahead, please.
Well, I don't look at it in terms of what was in the first part of the debate said. I think Mr. Ram had possibly said so, that, it's a very poor comment on the government because, in both cases, in this case, he was speaking for the director. But I think it's unfortunate for the organization because it would be quite strange that the government would put up two people to fight against each other within it, Mr. Verma or Mr. This. After all, Mr. Verma is appointed by that committee in which the Honorable Prime Minister was there, the Chief Justice and the leader of opposition or of the Congress party, being the single largest opposition party. Though the Congress party today is taking that stand, they are the ones who oppose the appointment of Mr. Verma. So I think I'd look at it now that whatever has flowed, it's an extraordinary situation. It's not a situation being faced by an organization earlier. And therefore, now the best thing that needs to come out is that the truth should come out. And what the Chief Justice of India and the Supreme Court has done is absolutely correct. Let's know the entire facts, or at least on a preliminary basis. Is there any merit in the allegations that have been made, and take it up from there. So I don't think this is going to fester too much in time, and it shouldn't either. In any case, a new director is due because I think sometime in January or February, the tenure of the incumbent comes to an end.
And, here's the question, Mr. Kohli. We know, of course, that the director is appointed by the collegium, which includes the Prime Minister, the leader of the opposition, and the Chief Justice of India. Who appoints the special director?
The government. But in any case, I don't think, Faye, we should bear in mind, administratively speaking, even if the government is making transfers in and out under Section 4 of the Delhi Special Police Establishment Act, the bottom line is the director is fiercely independent about the organization, and it's not as if there's a war with the director. I mean, most of the time it's about IPS officers being posted. They finish their tenure, they go back to their cadres. There is also a set of officers within the CBI who are not from the IPS cadre, but are there in the investigative team. So therefore, I don't think it's as if the government is at war with the CBI or the CBI with war. It comes out of the Consolidated Fund of Government of India. Those salaries are paid out of that. But at the end of the day, there is a mechanism to also look at its independence, which is why the appointment is tenure protected after the Vineet Narayan judgment. So it's not these are the checks and balances to preserve the integrity of the organization, like the CVC's got superintendents through Section 8. So I think we need to look at it a little more broad-based, not in an open and shut manner in terms of the government running the CBI. It would be incorrect to say that the government is not involved in the CBI, but to say that the CBI is a wing of the government in every sense and will run on the wish and fancy of the government.
Okay. Engram, do you want to offer a rebuttal to that statement that yes, the special director is appointed by the government, but that doesn't mean they're at war with each other?
Well, I don't think it's just a war between two officers. I think the heart of the matter, as some people have pointed out, is this government wants to place favored officers in key positions to do whatever. Not so much to favor them personally as to get its work done, its agenda realized. And I think that's what's happening. As for the independence of the CBI, I've never bought into that. There are some who are relatively autonomous, Certainly, and the Supreme Court, please remember, once called the CBI a caged parrot who speaks in his master's voice. And Mr. Verma today is not a caged parrot. He's come out of the cage if he was in it. And he doesn't speak in his master's voice. He's strenuously objected to it. But by and large, it's used for, and it's not just the present government. I think the UPA also did it. The UPA also did the same thing during the coal scam and so on. But this is more blatant than what I can remember in recent times. It happened during Bofors, the Bofors investigation by the Hindu. There was clear interference with the CBI. They didn't even file an FIR.
Yes.
You have to be even-handed. But I don't buy this line that the CBI, just because there's a statutory arrangement and the way there's a selection committee or collegium that appoints the director is independent by any means. There are independent officers, upstanding officers, honest officers who want to do their job, but overall the institution sadly lacks independence. Compared with the Crown Prosecution Service in the UK or the investigations, and I think we are living in a different continent.
All right, Vinod Sharma, your comment and your response to Nalin Kohli's statement that this is actually not a war between government and CBI.
Well, first of all, I have 2 points to make. The fact that the court did not order status quo ante is being interpreted as some degree of endorsement of what government did. My view is that the court was loath to act in the manner in which the government acted. The court is being more scientific. It wants to have an incremental approach to this issue. It wants a report before it. There are two views also, whether this report by the CVC will be filed to the court because there has been no explicit order to that effect, or whether it will go to the government first. But in my view, it will go to the court because it is being monitored by the court. And the judge who has been assigned to monitor this probe has impeccable integrity. He's the one who had opened those investigations into the IPL, if you remember, Justice Patnaik. So what the court has done today is very reassuring insofar as the treatment or the use of CBI by successive governments is concerned. I agree that this agency was always manipulated to suit the interests of the government of the day, but it has never been mauled publicly in this manner in my memory, and whatever was left of its credibility has been destroyed by that midnight commando action, so to speak, at the CBI headquarters. Imagine a person who was heading the organization was virtually excluded, was taken out of the periphery. The agency was barricaded for him, and his office was sealed and some papers taken away. This is not done. No respectable government, regardless of its color, ideological color, should ever do that.
Right.
Because this is the only federal investigating agency that it has.
Right. Nalin Kohli, I do understand you have to leave us in a bit, but I just want to ask you one question. Of course, I know you'll want to respond to what Mr. Vinod Sharma said, but also in the incident of the 4 IB officers that were in fact found outside or discovered, let's say, outside of Alok Verma's home, we understand now the Delhi police has shifted out the Delhi police officers who were seen dragging those the IB officials. And the ANI copy that has come out to all of us says that the Delhi police fears for the lives of its PSOs, who sources say were just doing their duty. So they've actually taken those officers and moved them to what they call an undisclosed location because they're afraid that the IB that is unhappy about the treatment of its officers will lash out. This is very worrying. Now, is it also the IB versus the Delhi police? And will the IB actually put lives at risk because they were grabbed by the collar? This sounds, I mean, all of this together, Nalin Kohli, sounds very worrying to any citizen.
No, I don't know. I'm finding that a little, I've not seen that report, but I do find it a little intriguing to say that this kind of thing is out. But I must mention to you, Faye, that these press releases or these source-based information, they They are not written by experienced journalists like you or experienced lawyers on this panel. So they may not be so elegantly done. But I find it a little intriguing to believe a story
you're
like
an
that.
Experienced lawyer.
There may be more to it. Maybe there is some kind of a goof up or something like that. So I just say, there are others here.
Can I ask Nalin a question?
Somebody may have probably looked at it in a different way. But I need to say something on what Vinodji said and before that Mr. Ram said. I'd just like to, both of them are very senior people, and with tremendous respect, I would like to just, request them to broaden their horizon. India wasn't born only with the coming of the Narendra Modi government. There was a government that preceded before that. And to, give this whole, if I may say, outlook that everything seems to have become rotten after, indicate towards that direction is not correct. I think there's been cases of even worse happening. Obviously, governments like to bring officers they perceive who will be more in their efficient by what they may perceive in terms of the experience of working with them. And in any case, there are officers who are not colored in any way, and those officers are maintained or transferred out by every government. So I don't see anything amiss there. What is important is that nobody should do anything malafide, which is not correct in law. The second part is, about integrity of institutions. We've seen far worse. That doesn't mean that this government is entitled to or the next government will be entitled to. Certainly not. But I think it's not also that everything will come and rest only on the shoulders of this government as if everything was born in India today. We've had supersession of judges. It never happened, and it's hopefully never going to happen after what we saw in the 70s. So there have been many things that have happened, and I believe firmly that institutions strengthen out of these processes of chaos. Because what is unprecedented today, I'd say a counter thing. Assume the director is 100% right and the special director is wrong. So that will come out in the probe. But let me now put the shoe on the other foot. Suppose the director is completely wrong and the special director was right. Then all this defense that's being made one way, is that correct? We should wait for what comes out of the probe. It is the CVC. It's monitored by a former Supreme Court judge. It's before the Honorable Chief Justice and the Supreme Court of India. If we don't have faith on that and arrive at conclusions ourselves, then perhaps we are being very impatient.
Well, I do want to agree with what Nalin Kohli has said in the sense that the CBI has been, the behavior of the CBI has been very worrying in previous governments as well. Let's take, for example, the Mayawati case of the Taj corridor, where the report submitted by the CBI was dismissed by the CVC, saying that you've got this completely wrong. In the case of Samajwadi Party Chief Mulayam Singh Yadav, a similar action had also played out. Lalu Prasad Yadav, and interestingly, these are all political, very strong political people. So, Kailash Vasudev, I want to come to you.
And just to add,
yes.
3 directors of the CBI under corruption investigations.
Yes, that is
3
true.
directors of the
and this is
CBI
something we agree on, that this is consecutive governments.
We need to be a little more broad-based.
Yes, consecutive governments and consecutive political parties have sort of had their way with the CBI, and it's now all boiled down to this. Kailash Vasudev, is there a reason why you believe it's worse now than it has been in the past?
One fact we all admit.
I'm sorry,
that the CBI has always played into the hands of the ruling government. I repeat, no, it's a statement which we have now realized, that we are saying that from the 1970s or 80s, it was Mayawati, Mulayam Singh, etc., Lalu Prasad and all. So it is a statement which has been made across the board by all of us, that the CBI has always played into the hands of the ruling government or the government in power. I'm not going into the present situation. I don't want to. It's a matter pending in court, so we leave it at that.
Yes.
But one thing manifests itself. Everybody feels that the CBI is manipulated by government. If the CBI is manipulated by government, where is the independence of an agency? The independence of a federal investigating agency, whether it's the ones in England, whether it is the ones in the USA, the ones in Germany, the ones in France, the Surrey, and the like, the independence is given to them to take action and prosecute persons. In our system, we are given the authority to the CBI to prosecute those persons who are uncomfortable at a point of time when a government is in power. It becomes a political witch hunt. Moment it becomes a political witch hunt, the officers of the CBI are used to conduct a witch hunt, maybe against each other, like it is alleged today. Now, look at the situation. Everybody feels the CBI is a pliable agency in the hands of government. There is no statement by government today or yesterday or day before, excepting one which came around that it was done, the removal of the 2 officers being sent on leave was done in the interest of the agency. We are not taking stands. We are accepting the fact that the CBI can be used.
Yes.
If it can be used, why not restructure? Give it independence, give it freedom, give it the opportunity of, I'm sorry about this, give it the opportunity of being a fair and independent investigating agency. Unfortunately, today what we see is the FBI has come under cloud with the Clinton mails. The agencies in Germany came under cloud for a different purpose with regard to the Syrian situations. In Iran and Iraq, it's a totally different situation. Why are we doing it in our country when we have capable and able men? Why can't we possibly work out a system where we can attack corruption, where we can attack people who are improper, people who are conducting or misconducting themselves against the law? We made a statement, we will have a government which is going to fight corruption. Where is it happening on the ground? Why can't we do it? Are we spineless? Are we going to use agencies for our benefit?
The truth is, Mr. Vasudev, who is to give the CBI independence, but the government
I have the wider
themselves?
question.
Why would the government give up what has been politically a very useful weapon this entire time? And Vinay, the other thing we must remember, while the Congress held this massive protest today, very dramatic protest, the truth is, the previous governments, including the UPA government, was not any better. The caged parrot comment from the Supreme Court, the observation by the Supreme Court that has been quoted repeatedly over the last 3 days, happened during the UPA regime, happened during the coal scam.
Right, and the best example of intent on the part of any political party that has governed India starts from 1970. Mr. Y.B. Chavan was then the Home Minister. He made a statement on the floor of the House where he said that the Delhi Police Special Establishment Act must be amended and there is a need for a separate new CBI Act. There was a LP Singh committee. LP Singh was then the Home Secretary of the country at that point of time, which submitted a recommendation on again amending the law and making CBI an independent unit under a separate central act. 2 parliamentary standing committees, one in 2008 and another one in 2017, recommended the exact same thing again, including one under this government, which was rejected. In fact, the 2017 parliamentary committee headed by Anand Sharma's recommendation was rejected on the grounds that if you actually come up with a new CBI Act which replaces the DSP, it will take away the federal structure, that there is a certain amount of federal structure will get impinged if there is a central law that actually governs and rules CBI. 6 attempts have been made since the 1970. If every single government in this country has not accepted it, it clearly tells you that the governments at the center have a reason to believe to have CBI as their police state instrument, which allows them to use it in political situations.
You're asking me to give up my favorite gun.
Absolutely.
In the time of what is always war.
And the 2 examples that you gave about Mulayam Singh and Mayawati, it's a very interesting. 2003 NDA government, Mayawati withdrew support. The case was registered a month after that. UPA came to power in 2004. The closure report was filed. 2007, the support was given again. The case was again slapped back on the exact same issue.
So it was obviously, and obviously for all to see, being used as a political weapon.
Yes, India is a police state. I mean, in the states, you have the state police. The central government needs a police of its own, and that's the CBI.
Well, we have viewers who have questions for us. Abhishek is calling in from Gandhinagar. Abhishek, go ahead.
Ma'am, hi, here Abhishek, and my question is from Nalin Kohli, sir. Okay. When CBI is having a director from the collegium, whose part is the ruling government, CGI, and the opposition, then why the CBI is having a need of a special director? What is the role of the special director? And I do believe that Mr. Karthikeyan can answer that question if he can hear me clearly. Mr. Karthikeyan, if the CBI has a director who has been picked by the collegium, what is a special director for? What is the role of a special director?
Well, your voice is breaking, but any organization, when it grows with a lot of work, it's very difficult for the top man to handle everything, giving adequate attention. So that's how, originally we had, there are a lot of joint directors, too many joint directors, and then subjects are also increasing, closer supervision, then you make additional director, then they become senior enough, special director. Like every organization, it happens like special director general of police and special secretaries like that. is also, the role is what is actually assigned by the director. Director is ultimately responsible. The entire authority and accountability is that of the director CBI. That's how it's a special appointment. No other officer in the government set up has that security which is given, protection given to the security of tenure of the director CBI. Anybody can be changed by the executive government. Any secretary, anybody. But only director CBI because of past experience, the courts also felt he is to be given adequate protection, security of tenure, so that he doesn't have to worry about his tenure. People cannot say we'll get you transferred. But now, if you ask me, is the system working? I tell you, still it is not. It is not totally functional, it may be, but he depends on the government for lots of things. Lots of things. The government can exercise control directly or indirectly. See what happens in America. The director of FBI is not, President may nominate, but he has to go through the congressional committee.
Yes.
There will be a public questioning about his past, efficiency, integrity, independence, everything. Then only he is appointed. Once he is appointed, nobody questions him.
Yes.
And then he has full liberty on his organization. Nobody can come in without his clearance because he is held accountable to the nation and to the president and to the Congress. It is not so today. I'm telling you what is happening is unfortunate, but I tell you something good may come out of that. The existing system, I dare say, it is not working. It's a proof is the crisis we have created for the whole nation.
Yes, it is a crisis of faith for the whole nation. Babu Rao on the phone line from Bangalore. Babu Rao, go ahead, please. You'll have to be very quick, though. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Very quickly, I will ask only two questions, madam. In fact, I had reserved for Nalini since he is not there. I have only two questions, madam.
Yes.
One is, many years back, Ram and Chitra shot in the nation with investigative journalism. I think we should get back to that. That is the only way. Watergate, Ram, these are the things that shock the nation. Second, if the Supreme Court can say that this case has to be investigated in 10 days, they have to do an introspection of many cases that are piling up for years. If they are expecting it to happen in 10 days, why can't they set a system in place that it doesn't matter whether CBI is a caged parrot, they can say, yes, bring it, whether it is Chidambaram, whether it is Modi or anybody, bring it on the table, investigate with a timeline and give the decision.
Okay, so if I've understood the question correctly, you're saying that if the Supreme Court can expect this investigation to complete in 10 days, then they should be, why can't that be the standard? Why can't more cases be done in this manner? But this is obviously a very unusual case. Right?
No, but I think he's slightly confusing between a criminal investigation in a complicated case, and this is not a criminal investigation. The Supreme Court has merely asked the investigation to be done on an allegation that the director has leveled.
Only a prima facie case.
And it's a prima facie case. So there is no, I mean, it's not a criminal investigation. Criminal investigations take much longer, and they should. You can't really have 10-day investigation in a crime. This is not a criminal investigation at all. It's barely a director levying an allegation against Asthana and challenging his removal or being the act of him being sent on leave. That's about it. That's the only scope of the investigation currently.
Well, there are a couple of things that have been placed before the court. Mr. Vasudev and Mr. Ram, these questions are for you. First of all, Alok Verma is challenging the manner in which he was removed from office. His office was sealed at 2 in the morning. He says it should have been done only in consultation with the collegium, and he's reading this forced leave as a transfer. Now, the CBI director cannot be transferred unless the collegium is consulted. The second point that arrives here is the appointment of the interim director, again, who was just appointed by the government, and no collegium was consulted in his case either. Mr. Vasudev, do you believe that the appointment of the interim director is also in violation of the Delhi Police Act, the Special Police Establishment Act?
Look, this is a very peculiar situation we are facing. The appointment of a director should always take place in accordance with the procedure laid down in the Vineet Narayan case and followed by subsequent orders. That is, collegium must come in. But this is really an interim arrangement which has come into force in view of the peculiar and extraordinary circumstances which are now manifesting themselves in the premier institution of this country, where a lot is going on. So therefore, to say that the government should not have done so, I would be on a bit of a back foot to say, no, it should not have been done. It has to be done because someone has to manage the institution. And the Supreme Court also says, look, you must carry on your duties, ensuring that the functioning of the CBI is not impaired. That's the order today. Therefore, personally speaking, as an interim measure, someone has to take an emergent step, and it has been taken. I don't think we should grudge that. The decision will now depend on what happens on the 12th of November when the Supreme Court looks into the matter in detail after receiving the reports in a sealed cover. Personally speaking, I don't think the Supreme Court will disclose what has happened because investigations will go on. It will take a decision based on information received. At this point of time, I was this evening, reading all this and trying to figure out where we stand. And some things crossed my mind, and I made a note of it. Please look at the extraordinary situation we face today. The CBI is being spied upon by the IB. The IB is now being arrested. The spies of the IB are being arrested, and there is no cloak and dagger. The Inspector Raj is taking absolute powers because they know they can't be touched. They are the emperors of the day. And what is most disturbing in this whole thing is the Me Too syndrome. You use it in a different context. Today, I use it in a different context. Me Too has come to stay because I am the king and I shall remain so. I don't bother as to who is going to do what to me, but I will definitely do what I can to restore my position and protect it. Asthana is protecting himself. The director is protecting himself. Decisions are being taken left, right, and center. IB men are being arrested. I mean, for God's sakes, where have we come down to? Have we no respect for institutions, norms, systems which have prevailed over so many years? In one sense, this breakdown of the system has come at a very opportune time for a government which must show guts in rectifying what damage has taken place.
Yes. Ms. Vase, forgive me for interrupting you, but Geeta Luthra, senior advocate with the Supreme Court, joins us now as well. Ms. Luthra, I apologize for the delay, but I thank you for joining us. Mr. Vase was just telling us that when we look at everything that's happened in the last 4 days, it's a matter of shock that things have come to this. Because there's very little, respect left at this point for the CBI. The IB is mixed up in it. The Delhi police is mixed up in it. The names of raw officers have also come up in the FIR as well. Is there no respect left or no sanctity left for any of these institutions, Ms. Luthra?
So, actually, it's a very sad event because time and again, CBI, the emphasis has been that CBI should be, being a premier investigative agency, should be completely independent and completely above any reproach. But an institution is as good as its officers are. And unfortunately, we are having not persons who, I think, who have lived up to the requirement that CBI has placed on them. And that's what's unfortunate, because you had that when Mr. Ranjit Sinha was here. You've got that situation again. Awesome. And this, when the Supreme Court and the courts in Vineet Narayan and the government have done every effort to try and make sure that you have people of impeccable integrity at the helm of affairs. But obviously, this is not what's happening. So I can only say that the last 4 days have been really sad, and it's a very poor comment on the investigative agency in the country. And this is the problem in every institution. The fact, how can you keep the institution pure? How can you make people appointed to an institution who are so impeccable and whose integrity is so good that they live up to the reputation of the institution? Instead, they are dragging the reputation down. And that's what's very sad. And I can only say that perhaps the CVC looking into it, a retired judge looking into it, and then the Supreme Court looking at it, may try and restore the confidence of the public. which is ultimately paramount. Because all the time we keep saying, all right, the policing is not good, let's refer it to CBI, as if that's sacrosanct and that's what's going to save us.
Yes, unfortunately, we've completely run out of time.
So I can only say
most of the panelists, unfortunately, do not agree that just this investigation is what will save us. But maybe it's time to re-look at the CBI's independence or the lack of independence thereof and figure out how we as a country can take responsibility for where we have come over the last several decades. It's not about this government specifically. It's about several decades of misuse of the CBI, because we need the CBI. We need the CBI to be able to give us impartial investigations. And can we trust the CBI to do so after what we've seen play out over the last 4 days? Thanks for watching.